If your child has an imaginary friend, you may not want to watch this. Do not say I did not warn you. Now, in 2003, Jacob and his wife have a little girl. Their first child was a little boy, and he had always been a special little kid. Now, during this time, they rented a house in their price range. They loved this house. It had a beautiful yard. It was a brick home. It had a finished basement. There was one demand of the landlord, though, that was a little suspicious. There was a door in the basement that was connected to a room that they called the office, and this door had like padlocks and locks all over it. And the landlord just told them, like, listen, you can use the entire house. I don't care, but I have one demand of you, and that is do not ever open that door. The landlord did, however, promise that there was nothing sinister about this, that he was just keeping his personal belongings there, like his storage there, which get a storage unit, but whatever. Things were great for the first year. Their son was 2 years old though, so he was moving around quite a bit. Now, shortly after he turns 2 and he's moving around the house a lot, he starts talking to somebody that isn't there. And every time his mom and dad ask him, who are you talking to? And he always says, my friend Jimmy. Now, Jimmy was really important to him. No matter where he was or what he was doing, Jimmy always had a place where he was. As time went on, though, things changed a little bit. It seemed as though their son was starting to fear Jimmy. He started to not want to play in his room, and when his parents would ask why, he would say that Jimmy was mean and that Jimmy was scaring him. Now, a couple weeks go on of him being afraid of Jimmy and them having to kind of like veer around issues about Jimmy, when all of a sudden he starts acting a little bit strange. He starts doing things that were out of the ordinary for him. He's getting into trouble a lot. And when his parents would ask him, why are you suddenly doing these things? You know they're wrong. He would say, so that I don't make Jimmy mad. Things, unfortunately, would take a turn for the worse. After he started doing these things that were getting him into trouble, his mom and dad started noticing that there was little bruises all over him and also bite marks. And when they would ask Timmy, who is doing this to you? But as soon as they would ask him this question, that he would start to freak out and he'd be like, I'm not supposed to tell you. Jimmy is going to get so mad at me. I'm not supposed to tell you. Just absolutely terrified. Well, this starts getting so bad that Timmy won't sleep in his room anymore. And one day, Jacob and his wife are in the living room and they're just talking about how they need to get a clergy in there or someone to bless the home, when suddenly they hear this loud crash and they just hear glass break. Now, this is coming from Timmy's room. So they walk into his room to see what the hell is going on. And there's this picture that is on the wall, but it's not on the wall. It's resting on a shelf. And this shelf has rails around it. And then the picture itself is nailed to the wall on top of the rails being around it. This picture had flown off of the wall past Timmy's bed and crashed on the middle of the floor. And this was a picture of Timmy, their son. And there was no way that this could have just fallen off. There's no way it could have made the distance that it made across his bed, especially with it having rails around it and being nailed to the wall and then also flying over his bed. There was just no way. So at this point, they have had enough. And they're like, we need to call a pastor or a priest or someone. So they call a pastor and a prayer group to come to the house so that they can bless the house. Now, the evening before this pastor and the prayer group were supposed to come to their house, his wife and the son are at home alone. And this is where it just gets bad. So his wife decides that she's going to give Timmy a bath. So she runs the warm water and then she puts all of his toys in the bath and then she puts Timmy inside of the bath. She's kind of sitting on her knees. She turns off the water and her son was talking to her, when suddenly she notices that her son just stops talking and looks directly past her. She says at this point that she suddenly just got this overwhelming feeling of dread and the room just turned ice cold. Well, he then looks down, starts playing with his toys again, and then he just looks back up like this and looks past her again and then just yells, Jimmy, leave us alone. So at this point, his wife is scared and she just looks at her son and she just says, is Jimmy behind me, Bubby? And Timmy just goes, oh, I just got chills. So she slowly turns around and right behind her is this see-through apparition of this little boy peeking around the door frame. Except for this was no ordinary little boy. His hair was soaked. He had long teeth and his eye sockets were empty. She screams, grabs her son, runs out of the house, and will not go back into that house until it is blessed. So the prayer group and the clergy come to bless the house, the priest, and as soon as they come and they start praying and doing their thing, this putrid smell comes over the air and the whole energy of the entire house just shifts to darkness. But after that, no more Jimmy. Now, they never did open that door, but they always wondered what was behind it. They believed this was not a little boy, but a creature portraying itself as one, hurting their son. It's now almost 2026, so that is almost 23 years ago, and all these years later, as an adult, Timmy still remembers Jimmy, but refuses to talk about him. So what did you guys think about that story? I don't know what it was about that story. I still have chills on my entire body. I'm not even joking you. That freaked me out. Do not like kid ghosts. You guys already know this, but that was not a ghost. That you're hurting a child. I think that's a demon. No doubt in my mind that is some type of demon, because ghosts don't harm children. Or at least I don't think that they do. I mean, that takes a special type of evil, in my opinion. So I personally think that this was a demon, and I think that poor little boy, for whatever reason, I got the brunt of whatever was behind that door, because it is a little weird to me that why have a room in somebody's home that they can't go in? Like, number one, they're paying rent. So how are you going to tell them that they can't go into a part of their room? I guess if you're cutting that portion off of the rent, that's fine, right? It is the landlord's home after all. But generally speaking, it depends on what state you're in. But in New York State, yeah, we would be able to go in that room. You can't tell us that we can't. If your valuables are that important, why are they kept in a stranger's home? Like, you don't know if those people are going to open that door. I don't know. That whole thing is weird to me. What do you guys think about that portion of the story? I would love to know your thoughts on that portion of the story, because it does sound like that may be kind of correlated. But with that being said, I'm just glad that he is okay today, and that was all stopped, and that child stopped being, oh my God, that reminds me of a dream I had last night. So my dogs, as you guys know already, are literally my pride and joy. I love them with all my heart. And I know this is not the same thing as a child, but like, the love I have for my dogs is truly so unconditional. And I had a dream last night that Leo, my dog, well, one of them, was being harmed by a demon. And I couldn't stop it from happening because I didn't know how to stop. You can't stop something invisible from harming like someone you love. And I can imagine that that's how they felt. So that's super, and it was such a horrible dream. I've thought about it literally like for like the first 5 to 6 hours of today. I thought about this dream, and the fact that I just put this 2 and 2 together is super weird that I got this story tonight. Again, I know it's not the same thing as having a kid, but I still love them so much, and I would be heartbroken. Drop all your thoughts, opinions, and suggestions in the comments, but as always, please be respectful.
Mimic stories freak me out. A follower named Jeremy said that he moved to Brownsville with his cousin and his wife. They had just got this house, but it was built in 1921. So this house is well over 100 years old, and he said that on the very first day, he felt that something was off. It felt heavy, but he is a believer in Jesus Christ, so he didn't pay it no mind. That very first day, he is walking into his room, moving everything in, he's dusting everything, and his door opens by itself. Again, pays it no mind, he brushes it off, he's like, okay, like, everything's fine. One day he came home from work, he was tired, so he went straight to the shower, and while he's showering, his cousin knocked on the door, and he's like, hey, I am going with my wife to go get some tacos, do you want anything? And Jeremy is like, absolutely, can you bring me some tacos, please? His cousin is like, yeah, I'll be back. We're just gonna go pick them up, and then we will all have dinner here together. Jeremy finishes his shower, and while he's turning the water off, he hears, and he's like, yo, what's up? And it's his cousin, and he's like, hey, I'm back with the food, come out. Jeremy's like, okay. He dried himself off, he got himself dressed, goes into his room, puts all his things away. He comes out into the kitchen, into the dining room, and no one's there. He's literally like, hello? Nobody there. He calls his cousin and he's like, hey, where did y'all go now? And his cousin is like, hey, we already picked up the tacos. We are on our way down the street. And Jeremy's like, what do you mean? Weren't you just home? And his cousin is like, no, we just picked up the food. We are on our way. So then who knocked on the door? As soon as the cousin got home, Jeremy explained everything. He was like, I was in the shower. Literally, I heard someone knock on the door. It was you that spoke back to me. You told me to come out because you were home with the food. Like, and he wants to know, how do you explain that? They prayed over the house. Thankfully, nothing ever happened again. But how do you explain that? It has to be a mimic or something, right? That's what's scary about mimic stories, because it's like, who is it? Is it a spirit? Is it something evil? Like, no, thank you. Thank you so much to Jeremy, though, for sending me this spooky story. As always, if you guys have any stories that you'd like for me to read, please send them via DM or email, and I love to read them, and I will see you guys in the next spooky story. Bye!
Hey, mama. Remember you told me that my grandma was the first lady to have food stamps?
Yeah, my mother.
Can you go into that story?
Okay, this happened back in 1961 because I remember because my sister was born in 1961.
Mm-hmm.
We was all at home, living at home. So my father had a light heart attack. He couldn't, he couldn't work no more. He went to the doctor. They told him that he couldn't do all that lifting and stuff, heavy work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he started doing landscaping. That was his new job, landscaping, working in yards and stuff. Okay, so I never forget, it was snowing real, real bad. It was in December. And my mama, like I said, my father lost his job, during that time, back in the 60s, they didn't really have jobs in my hometown, for black people. The only job that the black people could do in the summertime was like go to the fields, chop cotton, pick cotton, pack corn, stuff like that.
Okay.
Those were the only jobs that they had. So, my mama, she was working. She said, Lord, I don't know what I'm gonna do. My husband had a heart attack. I gotta have some money to pay these bills. And so she took off, put her coat on, and it was blizzarding outside. And so as she was walking, the sheriff of our hometown, like I said, his name was Mr. P. Rose Simmons,
Mm-hmm.
he stopped my mama. And he said, lady, where is you going in all this blizzard and snow? And my mama, she told me the story. She said, my husband had a heart attack and he can't work no more. And I got 9 kids at home and I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to feed my kids. So he told my mama, he said, get in the car. So mama said he put in the car and they drove down to East Perry. It's another town, like a little white town.
Mm-hmm.
And drove her down to East Perry. She got the car. They went inside the office. She said, and so back then, we didn't know what public aid was. Public system
Mm-hmm.
and public housing.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have none. We didn't even have my hometown. We didn't even have a project house. But the white people had a project house because they stayed on the other side. They had built them a project, public system for them. So as my mama goes inside the building, he talked to one of the case workers. He said, this lady here, I picked her up. She said her husband had a heart attack and she ain't got no food. She got 9 kids and she need help. And so the lady told my mom. My mom said the lady told her, okay, we'll take her in. They took her in the room. And my mom said they talked to her. They helped her fill the application out for public system,
Mm-hmm.
public aid. And mom said, and when she filled the application out, they told her, this is what they told my mama. And we're going to help you, but you can't tell nobody else about this. This is government money.
Mm-hmm.
This back in the 60s. This is government money.
Mm-hmm.
And mama said they told her, you can't tell anybody else about it. We're just going to help you. So we don't want nobody else to know about this.
Wow.
And I want you to promise me that you will never tell nobody else about this. And mama said she was thinking, she said, okay, yeah, I promise. Okay, so they helped her. My mom was getting, back then in the 60s, my mom was getting, I think she was getting like $100 a month for 9 kids. And it wasn't like food stamp books,
Mm-hmm.
like food stamp cards.
Yeah.
It was like, back then they gave you them the green stamps books. Like the green stamps, you could spend them in the store.
Yeah.
And okay, and so they told my mama, they said, well, you can't have no man living with you. You can't, it just got to be for you and your kids. We're going to come check every month and see whether you got, and they did too. My father was still living with her. My father, he stayed with her because he was our dad.
Yeah.
And every month, I never forget, every month that when they come around, my dad would have to leave the house. My mom would have to get his clothes
Mm-hmm.
and put him out in we had this shack out in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Mom had to put his clothes out there until the caseworker leaves. She checked all through the house back then. Even if you had a toaster, she wanted to know who gave it to you. If you had a rug on the floor, a TV, or whatever you had new, they checked and they wanted to know who gave it to you. Where you get money to get this from? Okay, so anyway, so after that, it was another lady. I'm not gonna say her name, but although she's dead and gone, but she had 3 sons, 3 triplets,
Mm-hmm.
and she had like 10 kids. because her husband had left her. And she had like 10 kids, and she had these 3 babies. So she came down to my mama's house, and she said, Lord, Elsie, I don't know what to do. I just done had these babies, and I don't got no money to buy, buy Pampers. But they were making Pampers, diapers. Back then, she said, I don't know, I just don't know what to do. I got to feed my kids, I got to feed these babies. And so my mama told her, Mama said, I'm gonna take you down. Mama said, I'm gonna take you down to East Perry. Now that I already told her,
Not
don't
to tell nobody.
nobody.
Yeah.
So she took her down to East Perry, got her hooked up. She was making, got her on public aid, and then so they found out. I guess I guess as we being black people, we don't tell each other.
Yeah.
And so everybody in the town, they kept saying, "What is public aid? What is public assistance?" Then nobody know what public assistance.
Oh.
And then so now the white people, they done got a whim of we as being black people. Now we know what public assistance is now.
Yep.
In our hometown.
Mm-hmm.
So now they ain't got a whim of it. So now everybody, the white people, they want to figure out how we know. We know because they kept saying, this one white lady kept saying, how in the hell do these niggas know about this? We the only one that knew about it. And so I think it was the mayor of our town. I forgot who the mayor of our town was at that time. And they had talked to my mama. And they said, who told you about this public assistance? Because we never knew. Then nobody in town never knew because we talked to everybody, and then nobody knew about public aid
Until your mama got on.
My mama went and signed, until the police took my mama down and signed her up, and my mama took the other lady down and signed her up because she had these triplets. And so now the white people's now, they mad. And so whoever the governor was, I guess they had like a rally meeting that night, and they wanted everybody that was that needed help to come out to the school, and just about the whole black everybody came, and everybody was wondering. We never knew. They never knew about public assistance.
So even the mayor didn't.
I don't know whether the mayor knew. He might have knew. He might have knew, but
they probably told him not to say nothing.
But he probably knew that we probably couldn't get those. I mean, I don't know because the NAACP came involved then.
Oh wow.
They came involved, and I never forget this lady. Her name was Miss Helen Kern. She was black. She owned her own restaurant, and that's how everybody came in and knew about public system, and that's when they started building. That's when they built us a project. We didn't even have a project. And so they built, I never forget, they built that project in 1967. They built us a project.
Wow.
And set it in the midst of, where the black people was at. And that project is there now. Matter of fact, back in the 70s, they built another project for the black people because I know we stayed in it. But the project that they built,
the first one
project, not the first one. The first one, they was a nice project. But the second project, my mom, we stayed in them. They were like houses. They were like little brick houses. I mean, it was really nice.
Do you remember what the first projects was called? The very first one?
I can't think of the name of it. I can't think of the name of that project. But it's still there now, and people still live in it.
Wow.
Okay, guys, so I'm back with my personal story time, and this is a paranormal one, okay? So, it was one day, we was living in my old apartment, and my mom, when she was, like, a nurse aide, she used to work late at night, and then she would stay with us during the day, so it was nighttime, and she had to leave for work, so we had to stay there with our dad. So, I forgot what I had did, but I had did something that ended up, like, getting me in trouble, so I had to go to sleep. I didn't have no devices at this time, but except for, like, TV, so, like, I couldn't go to sleep with TV. So the room was basically just black, and at that time, it was just me and my brother, so I had my own room. Yeah, so I'm laying in a bed, and I could feel somebody like looking at me. Like I felt like somebody was looking at me in the dark. Mind you, I knew my dad was up, but I knew my dad was not in the room with me. So, and like the door was cracked open a little bit, and there was the bathroom across from my room. So the light would like go onto the wall. So I had like a little bit of light. But I kept feeling like somebody was watching me the whole night. And I could not sleep. Like I kept crying because I wanted to watch TV, but I couldn't watch TV. So that's when I finally started getting tired. This is the part that I think I ended up in a dream, but it felt so real at the time. So after I fall asleep, I wake up and I'm laying in the same position that I was laying in when I was awake. And I'm looking in the same area that I was looking in when I was awake. So it was kind of like I blinked and I was in a dream doing the same shit. And I started feeling my body like sliding off of the bed. And it wasn't just sliding off of the bed. It felt like multiple people's hands was grabbing on my body and pulling me off the bed. But like making sure I didn't hit my head or nothing. Like they was being careful with me, but like also trying to bring me underneath my bed. Like it sounds crazy, but like it was a dream. So yeah, the hands felt really freaking cold though, like cold as hell. And they just kept like pulling on my shirt, pulling on my pants, and pulling on my legs to bring me down underneath the bed. And I remember when I like got to the ground, something like put something under my head, so like my head wasn't getting dragged, or like my hair wouldn't get stuck to like the wooden floors or whatever. But when I ended up under the bed, like the whole room got dark. Like I couldn't see the light that was coming in from the bathroom. I couldn't see nothing, and it just looked like it got darker than what it already was. And when I was looking straight underneath the bed, it looked like a big shadow, like bigger than my size at the time, but not huge, had like crawled and laid on top of me. And I don't remember what happens after that. I don't remember waking up. I don't even think I told my parents about it, because I know that obviously it was a dream, but it was really spooky. And I was mad young when this happened. I was probably like 5.
In the spring of 1986, a 22-year-old man named Will walked across the campus of the University of Missouri. Will was just a few months away from graduating from that university with a bachelor's degree in journalism. But recently, he was starting to feel like he actually didn't want to be a journalist after all. He didn't have any real passion for journalism. However, he did have passion for Hollywood movies. Will had lived in Missouri his whole life, and now he was, going to college in Missouri as well, so he was pretty sheltered, hadn't really gone anywhere. So for him, movies had sort of been like this magical portal into a different world. Hollywood would show him all these amazing places and people, and so that was his escape. He loved Hollywood movies. And so with Will's senior year coming to a close in just a few months, with, real life right there on the horizon, Will sort of had this big revelation that he simply didn't want to be a journalist. And in fact, what he was going to do is just drop out of college, literally weeks away from his degree, and move to California, to Hollywood, to actually pursue being an actor in Hollywood movies. But despite Will's incredible enthusiasm and naivete, when he got to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, he realized that he was not the only young person with this big dream. There were loads of aspiring actors and actresses who loved Hollywood and wanted to break in that were here, basically competing for all the same roles in all the same films. Now, this didn't deter Will. I mean, he wasn't totally shocked. Of course, people wanted to be big movie stars and come out here and try their hand. And so he went out and auditioned constantly. He didn't care what movie it was. He wanted to be in one, but he just was not getting the work. Nobody was picking him up. He was auditioning and being rejected over and over and over again. And Will was okay with that. He figured, okay, I'll get better and eventually get cast for something. But the problem was his finances. It was expensive to live in Los Angeles, and there really weren't all that many jobs available. I mean, during the day, Will really wanted to focus on just auditioning constantly, and so the only work he could reasonably take was sort of side gigs that he could work late at night or early in the morning. Except, again, there's so many people trying to do what Will is doing, aspiring actors and actresses, that basically all the side gigs in LA were sort of already taken. And so the only ones that were available to Will were like the bottom of the barrel side gigs, the ones nobody wanted. But, Will was determined and he was okay taking whatever was available. And so he ultimately got 2 jobs. He worked as a mascot for a fast food chicken restaurant where he basically would stand outside in a chicken suit and try to encourage people to go into the restaurant. And then at night, he would work as a limo driver, but for a very specific group of people. He was a limo driver for strippers who would go mostly to bachelor parties, and it was Will's job to drive them to and from these parties, and then also to go in with them and, sort of be the DJ, play some music for them. And then at the end of the night, he was in charge of picking up all the money and clothes that were kind of strewn about from the event and packaging it all up, putting everybody and everything back in the limo, and driving them back home again. Now, at first, Will just sort of accepted that this was his life, because eventually it was not going to be his life. He was going to break into Hollywood, and he wouldn't have to wear the chicken suit or drive the strippers around anymore. He could just be an actor, and he could do the thing he really wanted to do. But pretty quickly, Will realized that the opportunity to break in just wasn't really happening. But what was really happening is he was spending a lot of his time being the chicken suit guy and driving strippers around, because he had to pay his bills and these jobs didn't pay very much. And so he had to kind of encroach on the daytime hours and work more hours during that time that he would like to be auditioning just to pay his bills. And then when he would audition, he just continued not to get cast. And so before long, it just sort of felt like he was working these 2 kind of awful jobs all the time, barely sleeping, so that he could just get rejected over and over and over again and not break into Hollywood? It was depressing. And ultimately, what he decided to do was, I'm going to quit one of my jobs. He decided he would quit the limo stripper job and just do the chicken suit job to buy a little bit more time during the day so he could audition a little bit more, and for a little while he would just put all of his effort into that and hopefully land a big spot. And if he didn't, well, then his big dream likely was not going to pan out and he'd have to move back home. But on Will's final shift as a stripper driver, one of the strippers actually said something to him that totally changed his life. He was driving him around on their way to bachelor parties, doing this and that. And at some point, Will struck up a conversation with this woman. She was a stripper, but during the day, she too was trying to become an actress. Stripping was her side gig to make enough money to live in LA to try to break into the industry. It wasn't going great for her, but, she was enthusiastic and committed the same way Will was. And over the course of this conversation, she told Will that, in addition to auditioning and, working when you had to, you should also take this particular acting class. There's this one great class that all the biggest and best aspiring actors and actresses are taking, and lots of very successful actors and actresses have taken. Like, this is the one to get into. You really ought to divert some of your time during the day to going to this class. And for Will, he appreciated the input, but he's thinking like, that's not really going to help me. Right now, I don't need to learn how to act. That's going to take way too long. Like, I don't need that. I need action. I need to audition. I need to just be given a role, and then my training will be on the job. I'll learn by acting, not by training to act. However, he's also thinking to himself as he's driving around all night and she's talking about how great this class is, that he's like, what? At the same time, though, my auditions have not gone well. Nothing's really going well. And so maybe I'll just go to this class once. I mean, she's going to be there. She wants me to go. I'll go with her. I'll go one time. Maybe it'll be good for me. And so he agrees to go. And so not long after this final shift where he has this sort of pivotal interaction with the stripper, he goes to the acting class. And, the stripper is there and she's so excited to see him. And, he makes his way in and he sits down, and at some point during the class, the instructor says, okay, we're going to pair you up with other people in the class, and you're going to act out a scene in front of everybody else. And so Will, he randomly gets paired up with this other actor who in fact had a real audition that night. The scene they were going to act out was actually going to be done in front of actual agency reps who had come to this class. They were there literally to see this other actor do this particular scene. Will was just being asked to basically play support and allow this other actor to do their scene and hopefully get the part. And Will knows this. He's like going into this with, okay, I'm gonna read these lines and you're gonna kind of be the one really auditioning here. And it'll be in front of the whole class. It'll be, both cool to see a real audition and good exposure to the folks that are in the class. And so they do this scene, and Will, who really is just trying to play a good supporting person here, is so unbelievably talented. He's so into the scene. His emotions come through so beautifully that he completely overshadows the other actor. Like he completely destroys them and comes out looking like the star that really he thought he was. And the agency reps were so blown away by it, they actually didn't cast the other actor who was supposed to be auditioning for this role. They basically said, no, we're not interested in you. We're gonna cast Will in this role. Will basically stole the role from this other actor. And this moment would end up being so talked about and so iconic that this virtual nobody stole the show and landed this role that people began talking about Will in Hollywood. And wouldn't you know it, it led to his big break. Will began getting cast left and right as the lead actor, the starring role in Hollywood hit after Hollywood hit. Today, Will is one of the most famous and celebrated movie stars to have ever lived. He's won everything from Academy Awards and Golden Globes to People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive. Will is his first name, but he's better known by his middle name, Brad Pitt.
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill. Practical Magic is our spooky shirt of the day. As soon as I learned I could share my story, I immediately submitted because I love telling this story. I still get goosebumps. The @ will be right here. Sometimes this app does not allow me to tag people, so I always put it on the screen just in case. Back in 2016, 2017-ish, myself, my then husband, and our first son, 2 at the time, had just moved into an old farmhouse. The 2-story side of the house was from the 1800s. Yes, I know, but I was that white girl from the movies that loved its charm. People always say this, and the charm always ends up being someone had to perform an exorcism in the house. The other half, the first story part of the house, was built in the 60s. She was rusty, she was crusty, but she had charisma and curses. Charisma and curses, is that what she had? When we were first moving in, we would show everyone around the house. The 2-story side had a living room with a lower level, a beautiful fireplace with built-ins all around it. A windy staircase that at the top of it had a tiny half room and another full-sized room. Forget the tiny half-sized room. The full room, on the other hand, had bright red carpet and wallpaper that went halfway up the wall that was blue and white stripes. It literally looked like a clown room. You couldn't pay me to move in a fucking house that had a room that I thought looked like a fucking clown room. But every single person that walked in this room talked about the weight and the heaviness of it. We really need to have a conversation with some of you guys about why you make the decisions that you do, knowing the things that you know, and feeling the things that you feel. You know what I mean? You would walk in it, you would just feel like the weight of the world was on your shoulders. Hard to breathe, stuffy, and off. We moved into the first story side that was made up of a dining room, kitchen, bathroom, 2 bedrooms, and honestly never stepped foot on the second story side because it was kind of falling in. There was a door from the dining room to the living room that you could close, and that part of the house was just closed off, so it stayed that way. There are so many red flags. So many. I have always been able to sense other things as the house I grew up in was very haunted. The normal footsteps in the room above you at night or up and down the stairs, and your occasional shadow here and there. Nothing crazy, nothing scary. So when we moved in, the shadows that would peek around the corners weren't really alarming to me, but they were noticed. Now, when my son started talking to his friend, that's when I started to have a problem. That's when you started to have a problem. Okay, I'd tuck him in at night and he'd face the wall and talk his head off, baby gibberish, but conversations nonetheless. Playing in his room and arguing over toys. This is his house and his toys. Leave my kid alone. How rude. Is that what you think, that's your house? I'm sure whatever's there has been there for a very long time. This goes on for a couple of weeks and I'm just getting irritated at this point. The peeking shadows and the presence of something are getting more prominent. One night we all go lay down for the night. My then husband was a man who was not budging once he laid down in that bed. Not for one single thing. Can't blame him. He had been asleep for about an hour or so when he bolted upright and said, I've got to lock the door. This farmhouse was in the middle of 288 acres on 2 dead-end country roads. We never locked the doors the entire 5 years that we've been together, but I said okay. The door was a raggedy old farmhouse door that only had a latch above eye level, and that was it. It wasn't stopping anything, but a strong gust of wind, maybe. He locks the door and we go to bed. See, you bolting up out of bed and saying that we need to lock the door after... That was my dog snoring. After we have not locked this door the entire time that we have been here, and we're just going to casually go to bed? No. Lo and behold, 2:55 a.m., our 2-year-old is at the door pounding and screaming to let me out and yanking the door to get outside. No, thank you. Straight to our bed you go. We wake up the next morning and we're lightly talking about it, and I asked why he wanted outside. He said that my friend needed me to go with them. F that. You're mine. No way. Like I said, I've always known about the paranormal, and I know if I acknowledge it, it gets worse, but just never knew how serious. So we do our best to ignore it at this point. A couple more weeks go by and I'm laying down for bed, and I know I am dreaming, but it is so realistic. Our bedroom had a certain hue to it at dusk, and the smell of the house and the feeling of it was a dream. In this dream, I know my son is at my mom's house, and me and my husband are playing by tossing a pillow back and forth, and the pillow gets thrown towards the closet. Then the closet throws it back. The closet wants to play catch. No. Catch these matches, bitch. Catch on fire. No. We both laugh and throw the pillow back, to which it gets thrown back at us. It goes to the next scene, and I'm laying in bed when I hear, Mommy, I want a popsicle. Again, my son is not home in this dream. I say, no, you're not my son. The voice says, Mommy, yes, and a voice just slightly more off than my son's. I say, no, you're not my son, and in the most gut-wrenching, blood-curdling scream, it says yes and slams the closet door. I don't know what crack your girl was on in this dream. In the dream, you were on some crack in real life. All the red flags that was ignored about this house. Crack in real life. But I get up and fling the door open and move the clothes to the side, and there's a pack of popsicles. As soon as I go to grab them, the closet door closes. You know when you jump scare in a dream, you startle awake? Nope. Slowly open my eyes and just look at my closet. I'm actually awake now, and your girl is pissed. Don't play about my kids. I immediately call my friend who is a witch. I swear we aren't crazy. You're crazy. You can't swear that you're not crazy. You moved into a scary house with a scary clown room that felt off, and you wouldn't go in that part of the house, and you still lived there. Definitely crazy. I detail what had been going on, and she said that she'd come over with a sage. Great, grand, awesome. The next day she's here and she's walking through what needs to happen to cleanse the house. As she's saging, I need to state this is my house, my son, my husband, and my being. You can't have it, and you need to leave now. So we're going room by room. She's saging and I'm asserting my dominant. When we get to my son's room, I feel someone up in the ceiling following us as we're going around the room. Not bad, but watching. We then make our way upstairs to the clown room. I'm telling her how this room makes everyone feel, asserting my dominance. She's saging while explaining how things can latch onto woods and other items, and she thinks that my dream was astral projecting. She closes the door to sage around it. We continue to sage and talk when all of a sudden the door flies open, and the sage smoke that has filled the room is now being whooshed out as if someone had left in a hurry, and you can see it gliding down the stairs and out the front door at the bottom. Holy effing shit, right? That's an understatement. It being an old house, I think it's just a coincidence. See, there's the crack again. There's the crack. It's been 30 minutes trying to get that door to open up on its own again. It doesn't happen. She said, well, I guess he's gone. Ma'am, what? He? But I tell you what, that room felt a million times lighter after that. A week or so goes by and she calls me. She says it was a shapeshifter. It showed itself to my son as a child, me as my son, and it came to her as himself. He was home alone with her dog when he stood up and did what all good boys do and took guard because something dark took up her hallway one night. Her husband was away for work, so it was just her and the dog. She said she told it to leave, she would send it back to whatever, and did whatever magic she does, and it left. But it went on to her husband who was out of town as his sleep paralysis and sat on his chest all night long. When he came home, she was able to cleanse him too, and our little friend was never heard from again. Anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. You're insane. You're insane. Anyway, to live in that house, to move in that house, in a clown house, clown, you say clown, I'm out immediately. Heavy, you feel heavy, and you don't want to go on that side of the house. Why? It doesn't matter. I'm running out of time. Rated on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I will see y'all the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
So y'all know how I came and gave y'all a little story time about the time where my grandma called us after she passed away? Yeah, I'm back with another story time. This one is not like a paranormal story time, but it's still pretty scary. So me and my family, we used to like walk a lot during the bike trails in downtown Albany. We used to go and like go during the day because the bike trails was like a really long bike trail. So like you could walk all the way from Albany to New York City in those trails. So we would normally go during the day, and like little by little we would start going further and further. So eventually when we went like really far, like after like 30 minutes of walking, we started going at nighttime too. But before us kids started going with my parents decided they wanted to go as adults only, and they went at nighttime for the first time without us. Let me just say that these events took part on 2 different days, but it wasn't that far away from each other. So yeah, they're walking in the bike trails. They have their flashlights because it's like 10-11 p.m. so it's like really dark, and it's the summertime. So yeah, they got their big flashlights. They're walking through the bike trails. I say like 10-15 minutes into the walk because that's how long I remember that it takes to get to the waterfall. So when they get to the waterfall, there's like a gate, right? You could crawl through the gate, but like it's hard to get down into the waterfall because there's such big rocks and little rocks, and it's mud, and it's like a hill. Like you could slip and fall and hit your head on the rock mad easily. So they're looking at the waterfall, flashing their lights in the water, and they see this man, but the man is naked. And once he realizes that the light is flashing on him, he like tries to like duck half of his body into the water while he's also like hiding and looking at them behind a rock. But they still could see him, but he don't think that they could see him. So they're standing there yelling at him like, what are you doing? Like, what you doing in the water? Like, how you even get down there? He's not saying a peep. Like, he's just like acting like he's invisible. Like, he don't want to be seen. But he was naked. That's the really weird part about it. So my parents was just like, all right, I think it's time for us to go. So they get their stuff and they leave. Now, fast forward to a whole different day. This is the day that they decided they was going to bring us kids with them to the bike trails at nighttime because we kept saying we was bored. So they was like, yeah, bored? Okay, come on. So we're walking in the bike trails. And I say we're around like 10-15 minutes into the walk, like around the water. So the whole time, you know, we're being aware of our surroundings, looking in front of us, behind us, into the trees. My dad's flashing the light, you know, and he always brings protection with us just in case anything happens. So we don't see nobody around us, right? We don't see nobody around us. We don't hear nobody walking, nothing. Nobody's riding bikes. Nobody's lights is flashing back at us, nothing. So all of a sudden, I start feeling like somebody's walking behind us. So I look and I heard something. So I tell everybody else that's around us, and I told my dad, like, flash the light over there. So he flashes the light over there behind us, and it's this guy walking in the dark with no flashlights, but he's speed walking, like speed walking. And he's holding a big ass garbage bag. Like, I don't know what was in, well, we didn't know what was in the garbage bag, but he's walking by us. And if it wasn't for us having flashlights, nobody would have knew he was walking. Nobody would have, like, how are you even walking in the bike trails without a light? So he passes us. And then he turns, like, we're walking a little bit longer, but then he turns into the actual woods. Like, he goes into somewhere that's not on the bike trails. And we were just like, okay, like, let's not flash the lights over there or, like, invade his privacy, because what happens if he's a homeless man and he was just dropping something off? But he didn't look homeless. Like, he looks like a regular guy. Like, so we keep walking deeper into the bike trails, and we're thinking about it, but we're like not trying to dwell on it too much. So now it's time for us to leave, right? So we start heading out of the bike trails, and again, nobody is around us. Like, we don't hear nobody, we don't see nobody. We're flashing the lights, trying to see if we see the same guy. We don't see him until we see him. We seen him, and he's speed walking again, but this time he does not have the big garbage bag that he had. So you basically just dropped off something into the middle of the woods with no light, which make you look mad sus, and now you're leaving and you're speed walking out like you not trying to get caught or whatever. Sorry. Not to mention though, like I said, we was walking a lot in these bike trails. We never seen him before, and we never seen him again since that incident. But we didn't hear anything about a body being found in those specific bike trails. But I don't know what was in that bag, but that's just weird. So if y'all want more story times, let me know. I see that y'all like the paranormal story times more than the true crime ones. So I'm going to keep that in mind, and I'm going to get back to y'all.
He tried to turn people into actual human zombies. That is just a small part of the insane things that this man did. Jeffrey Dahmer was born on the 21st of May 1960, making him a Gemini. He was born in Milwaukee to his parents Lionel and Joyce. He was their first child. He was initially just like a normal, energetic, happy, loving boy, but when he was 4 years old, he went through surgery to correct a double hernia, and after this, he was left in a lot of pain. He was really subdued and just withdrawn. Around the same time, he also had his little baby brother born, and this made him even more isolated. During his early childhood, he moved a few times before finally settling in Ohio. Jeffrey then developed a really weird fascination with animal bones. He learned how to clean them and keep them, and he used to keep them really organised and preserved. He started collecting insects, animal skulls, and basically he was just getting odd interests. And this really made him struggle to make friends in school. He was just very much to himself. During all of this, his parents' marriage was deteriorating rapidly, and they argued and argued until they got divorced, which was a very bitter divorce, and it really distressed Jeffrey. So because of this, around this time, he also started to drink, and he was only 14 years old at the time, and he started getting serious interest in necrophilia and also murder. In June 1978, shortly after finishing high school, Jeffrey committed his first unaliving. He picked up a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks. He invited him back to his parents' house and he gave him some alcohol. When Stephen tried to leave, Jeffrey struck him over the head with a barbell, strangled him, and then later went on to dismember him. He placed him in some plastic bags and buried his remains behind their house. Eventually, he would crush his bones with a sledgehammer and scatter them in the nearby woods. After this, Jeffrey went on to briefly attend Ohio State University, but he dropped out due to his drinking and just lack of direction and knowing what to do with his life. His father was really frustrated by this, and he urged him to join the US Army, which he did. In 1978, he served as a medic in Germany. His alcohol abuse, though, was getting worse and worse, and in 1981, he was discharged, although later rumours linked him to unsolved murders in Germany. However, there is nothing that actually confirms that this was ever true. After his brief stint in the army, he returned back to Ohio and he was arrested for disorderly conduct. His dad, who had remarried, told him to go and live with his grandma, but his drinking continued, everything continued, and it just got worse and worse. In 1986, he was again arrested for performing sexual acts in front of two boys, receiving 1 year's probation. Then in 1987, Jeffrey met Stephen Tuomi at a bar and checked into a hotel with him. After a big night of drinking with Stephen, Jeffrey claims that he woke up and Stephen was dead. He had no memory of anything, no memory of killing him. He then took the body in a suitcase to his grandma's house where he went on to dismember it, and then he performed sexual acts with the remains. He kept Stephen's head for weeks before actually disposing of it. While still living with his grandma, Jeffrey went on to unalive another 2 people, but the weird behaviours that he had made his grandma say, "You are going to have to move out." In 1988, Jeffrey then lured a 13-year-old boy back to his house under the pretense of taking some special photographs. He was charged with sexual exploitation and claimed that he thought this boy was older. But while he was awaiting sentencing in March 1989, Jeffrey murdered Anthony Sears. This was a man that he found very attractive. He drugged him, he strangled him, he photographed him, and then he preserved his head and his genitals. Later that year, Jeffrey stood trial for the sexual assault on the 13-year-old boy. He appeared remorseful and claimed that he had changed. He was sentenced to 1 year in jail on day release to work during the day and basically go back to prison at night, and 5 years of probation. He only served 10 months of this before being released. After this release, though, Jeffrey moved into a Milwaukee apartment where everything just got so much worse. He went on to unalive 12 more men and boys, developing disturbing rituals involving chemical disposal, preservation of body parts, and cannibalism. He even attempted to create submissive zombies by drilling into the victims' skulls and injecting acid or boiling water into them. One experiment that he was trying to do on one of these victims really failed because the victim woke up and Jeffrey then just had to strangle him because he panicked. Everything almost came to a complete stop in May 1991 when a 14-year-old boy escaped from Jeffrey's apartment. He ran naked through the street. Neighbours rang the police, but when Jeffrey told the police that this was just his 19-year-old lover, they believed him and they took the boy back inside Jeffrey's house. The officers only went in and had a really quick look, but if they had a proper look, they would have found that there was actually another body inside the apartment that they'd just taken that victim back to. On the 22nd of July in 1991, the police stopped Tracy Edwards, who was running down the street with a handcuff on his wrist. He claimed that a man had tried to kill him and he took the police to Jeffrey's apartment. So obviously they go there, they go inside, and that is where they find Polaroids of dismembered bodies, body parts in the refrigerator and freezer, and preserved organs, and Jeffrey would finally be arrested. His trial began in January 1992 under heavy security, thank goodness. His father Lionel and his stepmother attended every single day. The jury would find him guilty and sentence him to 15 consecutive life sentences. Jeffrey later stated that he would have continued had he not been caught. On the 28th of November in 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer was killed by another inmate in prison called Christopher. They were left unattended while they were cleaning a bathroom together, and Christopher said that God told him to do it.
You can't make this stuff up. Might have known the story of real-life boogeyman.
Make sure y'all grab y'all popcorn, y'all snacks, y'all blankets, because I got another story time from my mama. So, this was back when my brother was 1 year old at the time. My first youngest brother. So, at this time, the only kids that my mom had was me and him. But later on, she eventually did have 2 more kids, another boy and another girl. So, it was one night that she had put us to sleep, and she was drinking and smoking with my dad's friends and her friends. Mind you, they're outside of the apartment. So my mom's chilling, and she feels like her baby is crying. So she's asking everybody, like, do y'all hear a baby crying? And everybody's like, no, like, we don't hear no baby crying, like, you bugging out. They kept saying, like, she was bugging, and she's like, nah, I literally feel like my baby is crying, so I'm gonna be back, I'm gonna go check on him. So she goes to the stairs, but when she gets to the middle of the steps to go into the apartment, she hears my baby brother crying, like hysterical, like somebody is pinching the hell out of him. So she goes in the room, and she's checking on him, and he's just looking up at the ceiling, and he's crying. And he's crying like so many tears is down his face. He's fussing around. At this time, he still wasn't walking, and he couldn't talk at this time. So he was just like fussing too much to her liking. So he's just looking at the ceiling, and my mom is looking at the ceiling, but she don't see nothing. But the room is dark, but she had the door open, so like whatever light was outside of the room was coming in, but she still wasn't seeing nothing. So she picks up my baby brother from the bed that he was laying in, and she goes into the living room with him. Mind you, I'm still asleep. So he's looking up at the ceiling like he sees something following him and my mom. And he's crying more and more and more. Like, he's so terrified at whatever is in that room on the ceiling. And now his head starts following whatever was in the ceiling in the room. It came into the living room with him. And my mom said it took her about 2 hours, like not even dragging it. It took her 2 hours to put the baby to sleep because it was hard to get him to stop crying. And he kept looking at the ceiling and pointing at it. And she said from that day on, my brother always said that he seen something in that apartment. Even not in that apartment, like still he says that he sees things. So if y'all want more stories from my mom, just let me know.
They chained her up in the front yard because they didn't like her. Now, this story is coming out of Austin, Texas. At approximately 9 a.m. on October 30th, the Austin Police Department responded to a welfare check at a residence on Bitter Creek Drive in South Austin after a 911 caller reported hearing a woman screaming for help. Upon arrival, officers found an adult female victim handcuffed to a piece of metal exercise equipment in the backyard, and she was naked from the waist down, showing signs of prolonged restraint and numerous injuries. Fire department crews were required to cut through the heavy metal links to free her. The victim told investigators she had been held at the residence for several months, not allowed to leave, fed only one plate of food per day. She was forced to sleep outside, and she was punished by being shot with a BB gun anytime she tried to run. She had multiple BB pellets embedded in her body, including one that was lodged in her eye. 5 people connected to the home were taken into custody and now face serious charges. Michelle Garcia was 51, Crystal Garcia, 21, Mache Carney, 32, Juan Pablo Castro, 30 years old, and Maynard Lefevers, who's 21 years old. The reported charges include aggravated kidnapping, aggravated assault, injury to an elderly or disabled person, and unlawful restraint. According to the affidavit, the victim had been friends with Michelle Garcia and visited the home often. At some point, the group decided they just didn't like her anymore, and they subjected her to captivity and abuse as a form of punishment. One of the children found in the home, a 4-year-old little boy, told investigators that his father shot the woman whenever she was bad, and 3 children in total were removed from the home and placed under protection. The bond for each suspect has been set around $305,000. Court dates are scheduled, some are in November, some are in December, and the investigation remains ongoing. Authorities are asking the public to come forward with any information. If you have any information related to this case, please contact the Austin Police Department's Human Trafficking Unit or Crime Stoppers.
The Cecil Hotel is weird because it was home to a bunch of serial killers that committed crimes while there. On top of that, there were a number of strange deaths that happened while people stayed there. The first and most notable strange death was Elisa Lam. It looked like she was hiding from someone and then talking to herself in the elevator. Next thing you know, all the cameras cut and she's in the water tank. People in the hotel also reported black water the next day, so that was her body decomposing in there. Nobody knows how she got on the roof because it's employee access only, and nobody knows what really happened. Another strange happening, Richard Ramirez actually stayed at the Cecil Hotel too. Richard Ramirez was an insane serial killer. He killed over 15 people, but he lived in the Cecil Hotel for a period of time during the 80s. Now this next one is a weird serial killer you guys may have not heard about, Jack Unterweger. He was an Austrian serial killer who murdered 3 sex workers while staying at the Cecil Hotel in the 90s. And here is Elizabeth Short, also known as Black Dahlia. Rumors have it that she frequented the Cecil Hotel before her murder. On top of all this, the Cecil Hotel for some reason has been a place where a lot of people end up taking their own lives. Some people say it's haunted and there's bad energy there and that's why it happens. Others say it's just chance, you're in Los Angeles, big population, it's bound to happen and have higher numbers. Whatever you think though, the Cecil Hotel is definitely a strange place. Do you guys have any theories on the Cecil Hotel? Let me know.
Weird spooky story time. Reddit stories about glitches in the Matrix people experienced. It was a random Friday night as we sat and talked about family on the couch. Suddenly, my mom's face became pixelated, like a computer program, for a split second. I wasn't drunk nor on any drug. I was completely clear-minded. My eyesight is 19/20. It creeped me out so much I haven't been able to come back to see her since. And that's not even the weirdest part. My mom has also been very strange and distant towards me since that day, via texts and calls. Yesterday, I plucked up all my courage to call and tell her this, and guess what she said? I saw your face did the same thing. Okay, I did not expect that last part where the mom saw it too. I've heard stories of people seeing other people become pixelated, and I think this is part of where the glitch in the Matrix stuff comes from, where people believe that we live in some kind of matrix or whatnot. It's crazy because you can't say that it was imagination or that it was just in her head, because the mom saw it too, and so that's why her mom was being weird with her. I wonder if her mom thought she was being weird with her too. Let me know in the comments what you think, or if any of you have ever experienced some kind of weird moment that maybe was a glitch.
This University of Tampa student at age 19 got pregnant and then threw her baby in the trash can. She then joked about with her friends on a group text that this is her favorite plan C. People found like this thing in the trash can, clearly the baby with like blood and stuff, so they couldn't really make out exactly what it was, and it was like wrapped up. But she said it was her period, and people believed it. Not everyone believed it, obviously, because then she got caught, but you know what I'm saying. This happened at the University of Tampa back in April of 2024. 19-year-old Brianna Moore was the person that threw the baby in the trash can. Her lawyer claimed that the Plan C reference was part of a broader abstract conversation. The lawyer also claims that the client didn't know she was pregnant at the time. Not sure how you don't know that. Medical examiner confirmed suffocation as the cause of death. Now Moore is facing charges of manslaughter and neglect. Now, obviously, back to the blood in the trash can and stuff, people didn't really buy the whole blood thing, so people called the campus police to do a wellness check on her. When the police came, she confessed to giving birth and holding the baby very tight to her chest until it stopped breathing and then wrapping it and throwing it away. A lot of people are saying she had a cryptic pregnancy, which is either a pregnancy you don't know about or a pregnancy that you deny until the birth itself. It's definitely possible she had one of those two things, but what a wild story nonetheless.